Title: In Search of Answers. Ikechi, a seasoned Nigerian sergeant, stood tall amidst the bustling peacekeeping camp in Liberia. The scorching sun beat down on the soldiers as they prepared equipment and checked gear with a sense of urgency. Ikechi's commanding presence was unmistakable, his face a topographic map of years of service, etched with deep lines and creases. He reviewed maps with his unit, his eyes scanning the terrain with a mixture of intensity and concern. "We need to be ready for anything," Ikechi emphasized, his voice firm and authoritative. "The situation here is unpredictable, and we can't afford to let our guard down." "Yes, Sergeant," Corporal Adewale replied, his voice laced with a sense of determination. "We're prepared for all contingencies. We've got each other's backs." Ikechi's gaze swept across his unit, his eyes locking onto each soldier with a sense of pride and responsibility. He knew that the fate of their mission, and perhaps even their lives, depended on their ability to work together seamlessly. Despite the tension and uncertainty that hung in the air like a challenge, Ikechi felt a deep sense of purpose and duty towards his unit and the people of Liberia. In Liberia, Ikechi often visited Amina's food stall at the edge of a bustling market. The smell of fufu and light soup filled the air, and Ikechi was drawn in by the inviting aroma and Amina's warm smile. "Good evening. This smells wonderful. What's the dish?" he asked. "It's fufu and light soup. I'm Amina. What's your name?" Amina replied. "I'm Ikechi. It's nice to meet you," he said. As weeks passed, Ikechi became a regular customer and their conversations grew more personal. They shared meals and stories, their bond deepening with each visit. One evening, as they enjoyed a meal of fufu, Ikechi remarked, "You know, I never imagined I'd find such comfort in a place like this. And I never expected to meet someone like you. Your stories are so different from what I'm used to," Amina responded. Their relationship blossomed into something meaningful, and soon Amina became pregnant. Late one night, as they discussed their future, Ikechi reassured her, "I want to be involved in our child's life no matter what happens." "It's comforting to hear that," Amina replied. "I've been worried about how we'll manage." But their happiness was shattered when rebels attacked the camp. The calm morning turned chaotic as gunfire erupted, shattering the peaceful atmosphere. Ikechi sprang into action, directing his unit with a fierce determination. "Hold the line! Don't let them breach our defenses!" he shouted above the din of gunfire. His soldiers rallied around him, fighting valiantly. But despite their efforts, Ikechi was struck by a bullet and fell to the ground, unable to continue fighting. As Ikechi lay wounded, he watched in horror as the rebels overwhelmed the camp. The situation deteriorated rapidly, with his soldiers being overrun and the camp's defenses being breached. The sound of gunfire and screams filled the air, and Ikechi felt a sense of despair wash over him. He tried to muster the strength to stand, but his wound was too severe. Just as all hope seemed lost, Ikechi's vision began to fade, and he succumbed to darkness, the chaos and destruction surrounding him. The rebels had gained control of the camp, and Ikechi's unit was on the brink of defeat.
Back at Amina's home, a soldier arrived with devastating news. "I'm so sorry, Amina. The camp was overrun. Sergeant Ikechi didn't survive." Amina, holding her baby Ikechi close, was heartbroken. She felt like she had been punched in the gut, unable to breathe. "No, that can't be," Amina whispered, shaking her head in disbelief. "He promised me he would come back." The soldier's eyes filled with sympathy. "I'm so sorry, Amina. He fought bravely, but he didn't make it." Amina's eyes welled up with tears as she held her baby closer, trying to process the loss. "What about the others?" she asked, her voice trembling. The soldier hesitated before answering. "Many were killed or captured. I'm one of the few who escaped." Amina's world crumbled around her, the weight of her loss crushing her. She rocked her baby, trying to comfort herself, but the pain was too much to bear. Years passed and Amina's stall remained her lifeline. She was now weary, her face showing the strain of hardship. As she served customers, she tried to keep a brave face. "How's Ikechi?" a customer asked. "He's growing up. It's been hard, but we manage," Amina replied. Despite her struggles, Amina worked tirelessly for her son's future. Ikechi, now a teenager, confronted his mother one evening. "Why did you never tell me about my father? They call me names at school." "I didn't want to burden you with the truth," Amina said. "Your father went back to Nigeria."
Feeling betrayed, Ikechi was determined to uncover the truth about his father's past. Late at night, he researched Nigeria and his father's Igbo heritage online. "So, my father was Igbo. I need to find out more about my heritage," Ikechi said to himself. His determination to visit Nigeria grew stronger. He discussed his plan with Amina. "I want to go to Nigeria to learn more about my father's background," Ikechi said. "I don't think it's necessary. Your father didn't want us to go there," Amina replied. "I need to do this for myself. It's important to me," Ikechi insisted. Reluctantly, Amina agreed, sensing Ikechi's need for closure. When Ikechi arrived in Lagos, he was awed by the bustling city. His friend Chuka greeted him with a warm smile. "Welcome to Nigeria, Ikechi. Let's get you settled," Chuka said. "Thank you, Chuka. I'm excited but also a bit overwhelmed," Ikechi replied. As Ikechi explored Lagos, he felt both fascinated and like an outsider. He was surrounded by people and places that were both familiar and foreign. "This city is incredible, but I feel lost. I don't know where to find my father's hometown," Ikechi said to Chuka. "We'll figure it out together." "Don't worry," Chuka reassured him. Eventually, Chuka helped Ikechi prepare to leave, and there was a sense of finality as they discussed the next steps. "Ikechi, you've stayed longer than planned. It's time for you to head back," Chuka said, his voice laced with a mix of sadness and understanding. "I understand. I'm grateful for your help," Ikechi responded, his eyes scanning the room as if memorizing every detail. Chuka nodded, his expression somber. "You're welcome, my friend. But now, you need to focus on your future, on building a new life without your father." Ikechi took a deep breath, steeling himself for the journey ahead. "I will. I'll make him proud." Chuka smiled, a hint of pride in his eyes. "I have no doubt you will. You're strong, just like your father." With a final nod, Ikechi shouldered his bag, and Chuka walked him to the door, the sound of their footsteps echoing through the silent house. Ikechi arrived at Mrs. Veronica Ease's home, where he was warmly welcomed. Mrs. Ease's husband, Mr. Ease, was in a wheelchair, his frail appearance contrasting with the welcoming atmosphere. "This is my husband, Mr. Ease. We're glad to have you stay with us," Mrs. Ez said, her eyes shining with kindness. As they sat down, Ikechi couldn't help but think of how he met Mrs. Ez at the superstore where he worked as a guard. She was just a customer he had helped with her groceries, but over time, their relationship had grown into a mother-son bond. He had shared his story with her, and she had offered him a place to stay, eager to support him in his search for answers. "Tell me about yourself, Ikechi," Mr. Ez asked, his voice weak but curious. Ikechi showed Mr. Ease a photograph of his parents, hoping it would reveal more about his past. Mrs. Ease leaned in, studying the picture, her expression sympathetic. "You look just like your father," she said, smiling. Ikechi's heart swelled with emotion, grateful for their warmth and support. As Mr. Ease studied the photograph, his eyes widened with recognition. "This is me. And this is my wife, Amina. You're my son, Ikechi," he exclaimed, his voice trembling with emotion. Ikechi's eyes welled up with tears. "I've been searching for you, father. I'm so happy to finally meet you," he said, his voice cracking. Mr. Ease, who was actually Ikechi's father, explained his past, including the severe injuries he sustained during the Ikechi mission and his long recovery. He told Ikechi about how he had lost touch with his family and had been living with Mrs. Veronica Ease, who had nursed him back to health. The reunion was an emotional moment of connection and relief. Ikechi's eyes shone with tears as he hugged his son tightly. "I'm proud to have you here. We have a lot to catch up on," he said, his voice filled with joy. The family embraced, and Ikechi felt a profound sense of belonging as he began to build a new chapter with his father and family. Mrs. Veronica Ease smiled, happy to see the reunion she had facilitated. "You're home now, Ikechi. You're exactly where you belong," she said, her eyes shining with warmth. Amina's voice was filled with joy as she spoke to Ikechi over the phone. "My son, I'm so grateful you found your father. I know how much this means to you." Ikechi's voice was filled with emotion. "Mother, it's like a dream come true. I never thought I'd see him again." Just then, Mr. Ease, Ikechi, asked to speak with Amina. Ikechi handed him the phone, and Ikechi's face lit up as he heard his wife's voice. "Amina, my love," Ikechi said, his voice filled with joy. "I'm so sorry I wasn't there for you and Ikechi all these years. I was injured and lost touch with you both." Amina's voice was filled with forgiveness. "Ikechi, my love, I'm just glad you're alive. We've both been through so much." "I know, my dear," Ikechi replied. "But I'm home now. I'm with our son, and we're starting anew." Amina's voice trembled with happiness. "I'm so happy for you both. Take care of each other, and let love guide you." Ikechi smiled, feeling a sense of peace. "I will, my love. I promise. We'll rebuild our lives together." Ikechi smiled, feeling grateful to have his family back together. "We'll talk soon, Mother," he said, before handing the phone back to Ikechi. Ikechi wrapped up the call, his heart full of joy. "We're a family again," he said, embracing Ikechi. Ikechi spent time learning about his father's past and connecting with family in Nigeria. Each day brought new discoveries and deeper connections. Mrs. Easy smiled as she handed Ikechi an old family album. "This was your father's favorite," she said. Ikechi's eyes widened as he opened the album, filled with pictures of his father's youth. "He looks so young," Ikechi said, chuckling. "Yes, he was quite the handsome man," Mrs. Ease replied, laughing, "and full of life. He loved to tell stories and make people laugh." Ikechi's eyes sparkled with curiosity. "What kind of stories did he tell?" Mrs. Easy's face lit up with memories. "Oh, he would tell tales of his adventures in the army, of the people he met and the places he saw. He had a way of making you feel like you were right there with him." As they turned the pages, Ikechi asked questions, and Mrs. Ease shared more stories about his father's life. The moments were filled with warmth as Ikechi absorbed the details of his father's life, feeling a deep connection to the man he was getting to know. Mr. Ease's health improved slightly with Ikechi's presence, and the family shared many heartfelt conversations about the past and future. With his newfound family, Ikechi began to plan visits to both his new home and Liberia, aiming to bridge the gap between his past and present. The story follows Ikechi's journey to uncover the fate of his missing Nigerian father, a soldier who disappeared during a peacekeeping mission in Liberia. It highlights resilience, the power of family bonds, and the impact of unresolved pasts. Ikechi's quest for his father ultimately leads to a heartfelt reunion and a deeper understanding of his identity,